My son ditched me on Christmas. I held the winning lottery ticket. It happened last Christmas. The day I needed my son the most, he left me standing alone. No calls, no messages, just silence. I'm Helen, 74 years old, a widow for 5 years. My husband, George, passed away quietly 3 winters ago. Since then, I've been holding on to the memories and the traditions we built together. My son, Mark, is 48. Once, he was the boy who loved Christmas mornings, the one who'd wake up early, racing to the tree. But things changed. After his divorce, Mark moved back in with me. He brought along his kids, Ella and Jake, teenagers caught between childhood and adulthood. I thought the house would fill with laughter again. I hoped the old warmth would return. But last Christmas, everything shattered. I spent the whole day cooking. Turkey stuffed with herbs, mashed potatoes whipped just right, green beans sautéed with garlic. I even baked my famous apple pie. The smell was perfect. The table was set. My best china, polished silver, and Christmas crackers are waiting to be pulled. I waited for Mark, and waited. No sign of him. No call. Nothing. Then I got a message. Just 3 words. With Claire tonight. Claire, Mark's new girlfriend. The woman I barely knew. I was stunned. My own son, choosing her over me, over Christmas. The house felt empty, colder than the winter outside. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Snowflakes drifted down silently. Then my eyes caught something on my dresser. A small white envelope. I'd almost forgotten about it. Inside was my secret. The lottery ticket, the winning ticket, worth millions. For weeks I'd kept it hidden, a private hope for the future. And now I had a choice. Give it to my son who walked away, or teach him a lesson about respect and love. That Christmas, I decided to hold on to it. Sometimes actions speak louder than words. Mark might have ditched me, but I wasn't done yet. I was ready to show him that respect isn't automatic. It's earned, and that family isn't just about blood. It's about how you treat each other. This is my story, the Christmas that changed everything. If you've ever felt unappreciated by those closest to you, this story will hit home. Subscribe now and stay tuned, because what happens next will surprise you. You don't want to miss a single moment. I wasn't always this lonely woman staring at a lottery ticket. I was a fighter. For 50 years, George and I built our life together. A small home, a garden filled with roses, and a family we loved fiercely. I worked 2 jobs for a while, just to keep things running smoothly. George was my steady rock, but I was the engine. I raised Mark with tough love and gentle hands. He was my pride. I watched him grow from a curious boy into a determined man. When Mark got married, I was there. When he had children, I was there too, always there. But after his divorce, everything shifted. Mark came back to live with me, but he wasn't the same son. He was bitter, angry, demanding. I gave him shelter and food. I welcomed Ella and Jake with open arms, but the gratitude, it vanished like snow in the sun. He stopped helping with bills. He stopped helping with chores. He stopped calling unless he needed something. I stayed quiet for a long time, told myself it was just a phase. Maybe he was grieving, maybe he was overwhelmed. But the silence grew louder. The distance between us stretched wider, and I started to feel invisible in my own home. That Christmas was supposed to be different. I thought it could bring us back together. I spent weeks planning, cooking, cleaning, hanging lights, wrapping presents, all for a family that didn't even show up. The empty chairs at my table, they echoed louder than any words could. And then, there was the lottery ticket. I'd bought it on a whim a few days before Christmas. Didn't tell a soul. Not Mark, not Ella, not Jake. It was my little secret. A glimmer of hope. Maybe a chance to change everything. I kept it tucked away in my dresser drawer. When Mark didn't come home that night, I thought about handing it over to him, to remind him what he was missing, but something inside me stopped me. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, love, family. I knew I had to stand up for myself, to teach Mark that being a mother doesn't mean letting someone walk all over you. Sometimes you have to hold your ground, even when it hurts, because respect is the foundation of any relationship. And love without respect, it's just a word. The house was quiet, too quiet. I sat by the window, watching the snow fall. My hands trembled as I held the lottery ticket. I wanted to believe Mark would walk through that door, but deep down, I knew he wouldn't. Hours passed. The clock ticked louder than usual. My phone stayed silent, no calls, no texts, not even a Merry Christmas. My heart sank. I had prepared everything. The turkey, golden and perfect. The table, set with care. The fire crackled softly in the hearth. But the warmth, it was missing. Mark had ditched me, not just Christmas dinner. He'd ditched me entirely. A flash of anger burned inside me. I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made. The nights spent worrying, the mornings waking early to make sure my family had what they needed. And now, ignored, forgotten. The loneliness was crushing. But then, the thought of the lottery ticket gave me pause. Could this be my turning point? Could this little piece of paper change everything? Just then, there was a knock on the door. My heart skipped. Hope surged. I rushed to open it, but it wasn't Mark. It was Mrs. Larson, my next-door neighbour. "We made extra pies," she said, holding a plate wrapped in foil. I smiled weakly. "Thank you." We sat by the fire, sharing stories and laughter. It was a small comfort, but it wasn't my family. Later that night, I found myself alone again. The silence screamed louder than ever. I pulled out the lottery ticket. Torn between despair and hope, I clutched it tightly. What if I lost it? What if I won? Would it even matter? The next day, Mark finally called. His voice was cold, distant. "I'm busy," he said. No apology, no explanation. My heart broke again, but this time something inside me shifted. I realized this wasn't just about Christmas dinner. It was about respect, my dignity, my worth. Mark wasn't just ditching me this Christmas. He was dismissing everything I had done for him, for years. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. I needed to stand up, not just for myself, but for the family I still hoped to save. As I tucked the lottery ticket back into my drawer, I made a decision. This ticket wasn't just a lucky charm. It was a symbol, a new beginning, a chance to rewrite my story. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Every harsh word Mark had said, every cold shoulder, every moment I'd been taken for granted. Morning light crept in, but I was already awake, determined. It was time to face Mark, not with tears, not with anger, with strength. I found him on the couch, scrolling through his phone like it was the most important thing in the world. "Mark," I said quietly. He barely looked up. "What do you want?" The sting in his voice cut deep, but I stood tall. "I want to talk. About us, about Christmas, about respect." He rolled his eyes. "Mum, it's just Christmas. Stop making a big deal." "It's not just Christmas," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's how you treat me, how you treat this family." He scoffed. "You think you're perfect?" The tension was thick, like fog in the room. I took a deep breath. "I'm not perfect, but I deserve respect." He laughed bitterly. "Respect? You don't even understand me. You never have." That hit me like a punch. "Try me." For the first time in years, he looked away. His shoulders slumped. "I'm angry," he admitted. "Since Dad died, everything fell apart." My heart softened. "I know, I've felt it too. But I lashed out. I took it out on you." The walls he'd built began to crumble. "I'm sorry, Mum." Those words were the key. The moment something shifted, but I didn't let the apology just slip by. "No more excuses," I said firmly. "You can't keep hurting me." He nodded, looking ashamed. "I want to do better." We talked for hours. For the first time in forever, we really listened. He shared his pain. I shared my hopes. We found common ground. A fragile peace started to form. But I still kept the lottery ticket close, because it wasn't just money, it was leverage, a chance to reset. "Mark," I said softly, "if we're going to rebuild, you need to respect this home. Help around the house, support the family, and most of all, respect me." He agreed. It was a start, a promise. I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this Christmas wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. But I also knew actions speak louder than words. The real test was still ahead. I held the lottery ticket like it was a secret weapon. The paper was crisp, the numbers were bold. Every time I looked at it, my heart raced, because this ticket wasn't just luck, it was control, control I never had with Mark. That Christmas morning, after the harsh words and cold silence, I knew this ticket could change everything. But it wasn't about the money, it was about respect. I'd spent years giving Mark everything: love, shelter, food. And what did I get in return? Neglect, silence, disrespect. This time, things would be different. I decided to keep the ticket a secret, at least for now. I needed to see if Mark could change, if he could step up, if he could show me I was more than just a convenience. Days passed. The tension in the house felt like a storm ready to break. Mark did small things: washed dishes without being asked, helped carry groceries I noticed, but was it real or just an act? I stayed quiet, watching, waiting. One afternoon, he even pulled out a chair for me at the kitchen table. Such a small gesture, but it meant the world. I smiled, but deep down I still held back. The ticket was my insurance, my safety net, my escape hatch. I could walk away any time. That gave me power. Mark needed to know what it felt like to lose me, because love alone hadn't taught him. Then, my phone buzzed. A message from the lottery hotline: claim your prize within 30 days. My fingers trembled. Could I really do it? Could I claim the jackpot and finally stand on my own feet? I thought about the house, the bills, the future, Mark's attitude, my lonely Christmas, my years of sacrifice. This ticket was my chance to rewrite the rules, to say, enough. I made a decision. I would claim the prize, but first I needed to set boundaries. I sat Mark down. Mark, I want to talk. He looked nervous, curious. I have something important, a lottery ticket, a winning ticket. His eyes widened. Does this mean we're rich? No, I said. It means I have a choice. You mean you could leave? Exactly. He swallowed hard. I wasn't bluffing. I'm not threatening you, I added. This is about respect, about fairness. If things don't change, I will take this ticket and start a new life. One where I'm valued, one where I'm respected. His face fell. I could see it hit him. This wasn't about money. It was about me. For the first time, he looked afraid of losing his mother. The next days were tense. Mark tried harder. I kept the ticket safe. I didn't mention it again. I wanted him to change because he wanted to, not because he was scared, but that ticking clock was real. And that ticket, it could change everything, soon. The ticket sat in a small metal tin on my nightstand. Every morning I opened the drawer, checked it, made sure it was still there. It wasn't paranoia, it was proof I still had a way out. Mark didn't know exactly how much I'd won, and I didn't plan on telling him, not yet. I was testing him, a silent test. Would he change without knowing the size of the prize? The first week after our talk, Mark was different, not perfect, but softer. He asked about my day, offered to make me tea, even fixed the broken step on the porch without me asking. It felt strange, almost like having the old Mark back, but I wasn't ready to trust it. People can play nice when they want something. The real test is time. One evening we were eating dinner. Mark put down his fork. "Mum," he said quietly, "I've been thinking about what you said." I kept my eyes on my plate. "I haven't been fair to you. I know that. I don't want you to feel like you have to leave." My chest tightened. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the hurt from that Christmas still burned. "That's good to hear, Mark," I said. "But words are easy. Actions are harder." He nodded slowly. "I'll prove it." The next morning, I found the sink empty. Dishes done, counters clean, laundry folded. Small things, but they mattered. Still, I kept my guard up. One slip could show if this was real or just a phase. The second week came. Mark got called in for extra shifts. He came home tired, cranky. One night he snapped at me. Not a yell, just sharp words. My stomach dropped. Was this it? Was the old Mark still there? But later he knocked on my bedroom door. "Mum, I'm sorry." That was new. The old Mark never apologized. He'd just pretend nothing happened. I felt a flicker of hope. The ticket was still in my drawer, still my safety net. But maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't need it. The third week, Mark surprised me. He bought groceries with his own money, not just the basics, fresh fruit, my favourite tea. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. The 30-day deadline to claim the ticket was coming fast. I had to decide, cash it in and go, or believe that change was possible. My heart battled my head. One thing was clear. Whatever happened next would shape both our futures. And the clock was ticking. 15 days left. No more room for empty promises. This was it, the moment that would show me whether Mark valued me, or only the ticket. Day 15. Halfway through the countdown, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a moment I smiled. Mark was in the kitchen, humming softly. It felt almost normal, almost like family again. But that day things started to shift. It began with a phone call. Mark was pacing in the living room, voice low. I caught pieces of the conversation. "Yeah, I'm working on it. Just need the cash soon." My stomach tightened. Cash? For what? When he noticed me watching, he ended the call quickly. "Work stuff," he said, forcing a grin. I wasn't convinced. Later, I found an envelope on the table. Inside, unpaid bills, past due notices. My heart sank. Was that why he'd been acting so kind? Not out of love, but out of need. That evening, I brought it up. "Mark, I saw the bills. Why didn't you tell me?" He shrugged. "I didn't want to stress you." I frowned. "Or did you think I'd just hand you money if you were nice to me for a month?" His jaw tightened. "That's not fair, Mom." "Isn't it? You've been different since Christmas. Was it all real?" Silence. He looked away, and that silence said more than words. The next day, Mark came home late. The kindness was gone. The humming, the tea, the small talks, gone. Instead, he dropped his jacket, kicked off his boots, and muttered, "What's for dinner?" My chest ached. I realized I had my answer. Maybe the change wasn't real after all. The following morning, I opened the nightstand drawer, pulled out the lottery ticket, ran my fingers over it. It was worth more than I'd ever imagined having. But the value wasn't just money. It was freedom. I could leave, start over. No more guessing if Mark cared. But part of me still hoped that somewhere under the frustration, the mistakes, the selfishness, my son was still there. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell him yet. I would watch. One last chance. Not for the money, for the truth. Because if Mark really loved me, he wouldn't need to know about the ticket. He would prove it by choice, and if he didn't, I knew exactly what I'd do. 10 days, one ticket, one truth. Will Mark prove his love, or will I walk away forever? Hit subscribe now so you don't miss the moment everything explodes. 9 days left. Snow was falling in slow, heavy flakes outside my window. I sat at the table, knitting a scarf for Susan, my granddaughter. Mark walked in, coat unzipped, cheeks red from the cold, but there was no smile. No, "Hi, Mum." He went straight to the fridge, yanked out a beer, and collapsed onto the couch. I watched him. The silence between us was thick. "Rough day?" I asked gently. He grunted. Then, without looking at me, he said it. "Mum, I need a loan." The words landed like ice in my chest. "How much?" I asked. 5,000, just until I sort some things out. I set down my knitting. "And if you don't?" He looked annoyed. "I will. I've got something lined up, but I need the cash now." I stared at him. No thank you for the roof over his head. No apology for Christmas. No acknowledgement of the pain he'd caused. Just money. "Mark," I said slowly, "is that why you've been acting differently lately? Because you need money?" His eyes flickered, just for a second, and that flicker was all I needed. "I've been trying, Mum," he said defensively. "Trying to what? Earn my trust or earn a payout?" Mark slammed his beer on the table. "That's not fair." I kept my voice calm. "What's not fair is you disappearing on Christmas. What's not fair is you only showing kindness when you need something." He stood up, pacing. "I knew you wouldn't understand. Forget it." He grabbed his coat, but before he could leave, I said it. "Mark, I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be here. His head whipped around. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not your safety net anymore. His eyes narrowed. You'd rather see your own son struggle than help him. My chest tightened. No, I'd rather see my son grow into a man who stands on his own. Mark stared at me for a long moment. Then, without a word, he walked out into the snow. The door slammed. I sat back down, hands trembling. I pulled open the drawer, took out the lottery ticket. My thumb traced the numbers. I knew now. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect. It was about love that wasn't tied to what I could give. And Mark had just shown me the truth. I folded the ticket carefully and slid it back into the envelope. The scarf lay unfinished on the table. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like knitting. The morning after Mark stormed out, the house felt lighter. Still cold, still silent, but lighter. I poured myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The lottery ticket was inside its envelope, tucked into my purse. I didn't take it out this time. I didn't need to. The numbers were burned into my mind. Instead, I opened my notebook. A blank page stared back at me. I wrote one name, then another, not family, neighbours, friends, people who had been there when Mark wasn't. Mrs. Carter next door, who shoveled my walkway every winter without being asked. Jamal, the teenager, who carried my groceries up the porch steps with a smile. Ellen from the church, who called every Sunday to check in. These were the people who treated me like I mattered. I closed my eyes, remembering that bitter Christmas morning, the sound of my phone ringing, my heart leaping, thinking it was Mark, only to hear his rushed voice saying, "Sorry, Mum, can't make it," and then nothing, not even a Merry Christmas. My pen moved faster. I started listing ideas, how to share the winnings, how to make it count, a trust for the Carter Kids College, funds for the church soup kitchen, repairs for the local animal shelter's leaky roof. I smiled for the first time in days. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about gratitude. The front door opened. Mark walked in, shaking snow from his shoulders. He avoided my eyes. "Morning," he muttered. "Morning," I said evenly. He made a sandwich, sat at the table. My notebook was still there. I closed it slowly, slipping it under a stack of mail. He didn't notice. "How's work?" I asked. He shrugged. "Fine, I'm busy." Busy doing what? I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Because in my mind, the plan was already unfolding. That ticket, worth more than either of us had ever dreamed, wouldn't be his lifeline. It would be my legacy. Mark finished eating and left without saying goodbye. I pulled the notebook back out, ran my finger over the names again. The clock on the wall ticked, slow, steady. Time was running out. The lottery claim window closed in less than 2 weeks. I'd make my move soon, quietly, deliberately. And when the day came, Mark wouldn't see it coming. The snow had stopped falling. The air was sharp, clean. I zipped my coat, slipped the envelope with the ticket into my bag, and locked the door behind me. My boots crunched against the icy driveway as I walked to the bus stop. I could have driven, but I didn't want to risk Mark spotting the car missing and asking questions. The bus was almost empty, a couple of college kids with headphones, a man reading the paper. I sat by the window, holding my purse tight. The warmth from the heater fogged the glass. I replayed the numbers in my head again, every digit, every stroke. My heart still sped up every time I thought about it. 45 minutes later, I stepped off the bus and walked into the state lottery office. The receptionist smiled. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I'd like to claim a winning ticket." She took the envelope, slid the ticket out, and scanned it. The machine beeped, a sharp, confirming sound. Her eyes widened. "1 moment, please." I sat in the waiting area. My hands rested on my knees, but my mind was racing. This was it, the point of no return. A man in a suit appeared. "Mrs. Helen Parker." "Yes." "Congratulations, ma'am. You've won the grand prize. After taxes, your payout will be..." He slid a piece of paper toward me. My breath caught. It was even more than I'd imagined. They asked me a series of questions, verification, identification. When the paperwork was done, the man shook my hand. Would you like a lump sum or annual payments? Lump sum, I said without hesitation. He nodded. It will be deposited within 3 business days. I walked out into the crisp winter air. The sky was pale blue. The wind nipped at my cheeks. I felt lighter, not because of the money, but because of the choice. On the bus ride home, I thought about how easy it would be to tell Mark, to hand him half and let him believe I'd been waiting for him to change. But I knew him too well. He'd spend it in months. He'd vanish, and nothing would be different. When I got home, Mark was sprawled on the couch, scrolling on his phone. You go somewhere? He asked without looking up. Just errands, I said, hanging my coat. He nodded, uninterested. I smiled to myself. The secret sat quietly between us, like a locked chest only I had the key to. I would decide when, how, and if Mark ever learned about it, and that decision would be mine alone. 3 days later, the deposit hit my account. The numbers on the screen didn't seem real. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. No one else knew, not Mark, not even my closest friends. It was a strange kind of power, quiet, invisible. I didn't rush to spend it. Instead, I made a list, not of the things I wanted, but of people who needed help. First on the list were the Johnsons next door. Peter had been out of work for months after his accident. His wife, Mary, was working 2 part-time jobs just to keep food on the table. I baked a pie, walked it over, and left an envelope under it on the kitchen counter while Mary was busy making tea. Mary called later that night. Helen, this isn't... You didn't... Her voice cracked. It's for the kids, I said simply. No strings, just use it. I hung up before she could argue. Next was Mrs. Alvarez down the street, widowed, living on a pension so small it barely covered her medication. I pretended I had extra from a grocery coupon mix-up and left a bag full of fresh produce, plus a discreet envelope tucked between the apples. No grand gestures, no public thanks, just quiet changes Mark never noticed. He was too busy chasing weekend plans with his friends or scrolling through online car ads he couldn't afford. One Saturday, as I was clipping coupons at the kitchen table, more for habit than necessity now, Mark breezed in. Going out. Won't be home for dinner. Okay, I said without looking up. He was gone before the kettle finished boiling. I used the evening to drive to the local shelter. I handed the manager a donation big enough to cover repairs to the heating system. When she tried to take my picture for the newsletter, I shook my head. No need, just keep people warm this winter. The gratitude in her eyes was enough. That night, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea. The glow from the lamp bathed the room in gold. This was better than any shopping spree, better than a new car, better than telling Mark just to hear him apologize. I was building something. A ripple of kindness that would outlast any argument. But I also knew the day was coming when Mark would notice that life around us was different, cleaner, calmer, more secure. And when that day came, I planned to make sure the truth hit him in a way he'd never forget. It started small. Little things Mark noticed but didn't comment on at first. The old toaster that used to burn everything, gone. Replaced with a sleek stainless steel one. The dented mailbox, fixed. The broken porch light, shining like new. One afternoon, he walked in and found me rearranging fresh flowers in a vase. Not supermarket flowers, florist quality. Who sent those? He asked. No one, I said. I just thought the house could use a little colour. He squinted but let it go. Then came the biggest clue, my car. The old sedan that coughed every time it started was suddenly running like it had just rolled off the lot. New tyres, clean paint. Even the air conditioning worked. Where'd you get the money for all this? He asked one night. I've been saving, I replied without blinking, which was true. I just didn't mention I'd been saving for years and had recently added a few million to that pot. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't press. The real shift came when I started saying no. No to lending him money for emergencies that were really weekend trips. No to covering his utility bills when he claimed he was between paychecks. One Friday evening, he came by with a familiar pitch. Hey, Mom, can I borrow $500? I'll pay you back in 2 weeks. I smiled politely. No. Mark froze. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, Mark, you're a grown man. Handle your own bills. His eyes narrowed. You've got money for flowers and fixing up the house, but not for your own son. That's right, I said calmly. He stormed out, muttering about how ungrateful I was, but the truth was he didn't understand. He wasn't supposed to. Yet. Over the next few weeks, the tension simmered. He noticed I wasn't asking for help with groceries or repairs. He noticed I wasn't worried about gas prices or clipping coupons as fiercely as before. One Sunday afternoon, while I was out, he just happened to stop by. He poked around, opened the fridge, fully stocked, checked the pantry, organised, overflowing. In the living room, he noticed a new rug. In the kitchen, a set of high-end cookware. Something was going on, and for the first time, I think a thought flickered in his mind. Maybe Mom's doing better without me. I couldn't shake the feeling. Something about me had changed. At least, that's what Mark must have been thinking. Not just the house. Not just the new things. Me. I walked lighter, smiled more, spoke with a confidence I hadn't felt since his father was alive, and I could tell. It bothered him. One rainy Tuesday, he dropped by unannounced. I wasn't home. My car was gone. The key was still under the ceramic frog by the porch. He let himself in. At first, he was just checking in. But I know my son. 10 minutes in, curiosity always wins. He opened drawers, checked cabinets, peeked inside the little safe under my bed. Nothing unusual. Then, in the kitchen, he saw it. An envelope, thick, sitting on the counter. He opened it. Inside, bank statements, not just any statements, numbers in the millions. I imagine his jaw tightening, his mind racing. I had never had that kind of money, ever. One deposit stood out, 8,423,176 Ore loans, dated right after Christmas, right after he had ditched me for his friends. He must have felt that twist in his stomach, flipping through the pages, finding the folded slip of paper, a photocopy of a lottery claim form, winner Helen Carter, winning ticket date December 25th. His grip must have tightened until the paper crinkled. I had hit the lottery, on Christmas, the same day he'd left me sitting alone. No wonder I'd been acting differently. No wonder I didn't need his help. But I know Mark. His first thought wouldn't be shock or happiness for me. It would be anger. Why hadn't I told him? Why had I been keeping it from my own son? The sound of tires crunching on the wet driveway must have snapped him back. I was home. He shoved the papers back into the envelope, slid it into the drawer, and sat at the table like nothing had happened. When I walked in with grocery bags, I smiled. Mark, didn't know you were stopping by. Yeah, he said, forcing a grin. Thought I'd check in. But I could see it in his eyes. His thoughts were a storm, and I knew he wasn't going to let this go. Not until he got answers. Mark couldn't stop replaying the numbers in his head. 8 million, over $8 million, and I hadn't told him. By the time he called me the next day, his voice was already tight. Hey, Mum, can we talk? Of course, I said, pausing mid-row in my knitting. Everything okay? Yeah, just need to stop by. When he arrived, I was in the living room, knitting by the fire. The flames crackled. The whole scene looked calm, warm, like a picture on a greeting card, but Mark came in like a storm. I was at your house yesterday, he started. You weren't home. I kept my voice even. Oh, you could have called. I let myself in, and I found something. I narrowed my eyes just slightly. What did you find? The bank statements, the lottery form. Silence. Only the ticking clock filled the room. So it's true? He pressed. You won the lottery on Christmas, and you didn't think to tell me? I set the knitting down. Yes, it's true, and no, I didn't tell you. Why? His voice was sharp. I'm your son. I met his eyes without flinching. You're also the man who left me alone on Christmas to go drink with your friends. The same man who only calls when he needs money. That's not fair, he shot back. You know I've been struggling. Mark, I cut in. I've been struggling too, for years. You think this money changes who I am. It doesn't, but it does change who I share my life with. He stared at me. You're punishing me. No, I said evenly. I'm protecting myself and my peace. He stepped closer, frustration boiling. So what? You're just going to hoard it, while your family... Family is more than blood, I interrupted. It's respect, it's kindness, it's showing up when it matters. You didn't, and now you're upset that I didn't include you in something good. Mark, you included yourself in my pain for years. You don't get to demand a share of my joy. I could see the words hit him harder than he expected. For a moment, he had nothing to say. I picked up my knitting again. As far as I was concerned, the conversation was over. But the look in his eyes told me something. If he wasn't going to get the money freely, he might just try to find another way. After that conversation, Mark started visiting more often, but these weren't warm family visits. They were scouting missions. His eyes wandered over my drawers, my desk, even the unopened mail on the counter. I noticed. I always noticed. One afternoon, I found the lottery paperwork slightly out of place, and his cologne lingered in the room, strong and fresh, even though I hadn't seen him that day. I sighed. It was time. The next week, I called him over. I made sure my tone was unusually cheerful. "I've been thinking," I said when he arrived, "about the money." That got his attention immediately. "What about it?" "I've decided I don't need all of it," I said evenly. "Maybe it's time to share." His guard dropped. "Really?" I nodded, sliding an envelope across the table. "This is for you." He tore it open like a starving man. Inside was a single piece of paper, not a check, not cash, a letter. It read, "Dear Mark, you've taught me many things over the years. The most important thing is that love without respect isn't love at all. I'm using the money to help people who've shown me kindness without expecting anything in return. People who've been there when you weren't. You won't get a penny from the lottery, but you will get one last chance, 1 year to prove you can be a better son. If you do, we can rebuild. If not, this door closes forever. Love, Mum." His face flushed. "This is a joke." "It's not," I said softly. "This isn't about the money anymore. This is about us. The money is going to those who showed up for me, neighbours, friends, and charities. But my son, I still hope he'll show up for me too." He left without another word, and for a long time there was silence between us. Months later, I was planting flowers in the front yard when I saw a familiar figure walking up the path. Mark. No anger in his face this time, just humility. He held out a bag of groceries. "I thought you might like company for dinner." I smiled faintly. Maybe, just maybe. The real jackpot wasn't the ticket at all. It was finally getting my son back. In the end, the winning lottery ticket didn't bring Helen happiness. It didn't erase years of neglect, but it did buy her something far more valuable, clarity. She learned that money is just paper, respect is priceless, and sometimes the only way to teach someone your worth is to make them earn their place in your life. Mark may or may not change for good. But Helen? She's already won. If this story hit home for you, hit subscribe. More real stories are coming, stories about respect, redemption, and refusing to settle for less than you deserve.